we liked the way the first forum went so well that we stole their idea. So what we've done is each candidate, we have consolidated, and each candidate will be the first to answer 5 questions. There are 15 total questions, and all of them will be relevant to Panama City Beach. And so whoever has number 1 in their pile, number 1, there's the lucky number 1.
Jamie, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Push that button. Will there be a final statement other than your questions?
Yes.
Okay, thank
You
you.
do that. Yes. I want to give you a brief statement. At the past 2 forums, all of our candidates here agreed that roads, traffic control, and law enforcement are their top priorities. None of them is on the record supporting spending millions on a new city hall or expanded annexation. All of them sort of accepted the fact that the aquatic center is going to operate in the red, but it warrants funding, and that funding libraries is a public good. But it's not news to anyone that Panama City Beach's resident and tourist populations are growing, so we'll be discussing infrastructure and budget issues in addition to others. All right, Eva, will you want to read the first question?
All right. Candidates, are you ready? Number 1 involves the additional fire station. Last December, the City Council voted for a special property assessment for fire rescue and essential equipment, including a new fire station. However, having a fire station close by often results in lower fire insurance premiums for residential and commercial property owners. If you felt that the benefit of improved emergency response and potential cost savings for affected citizens, would you change your mind? Please explain your answer.
Well, my position on the fire assessment all along has been that should have gone to the voters. They should have communicated better what they were going to do with that. And part of that is going out and telling them, look, our response times are coming down, so our ISO rating will be improved, and therefore your insurance rates may improve. But they didn't really make that case very well. In that case, they still should have given that information, and it still should have gone to the voter. I don't think that would have changed my mind in the way that we would have thought about it.
Well, not a lot of people knew too much about it when it happened, and I'm for a new fire station. I do believe we somehow could find the money somewhere else without taxing the people, the neighborhoods in our community. We're a tourist city, and we have lots of income coming into the city, and somewhere along the line, there's got to be a way to make it work without taxes or assessments.
Hiba, my neighbor, we have offices right next to each other. This is about priorities to me. All right, the first responders should be paid first with taxpayer money, and they haven't been. And again, I want to just briefly tell you that the city swiped $4 million from the utilities fund and then put it in the general fund, then took the $3 million out of the general fund, and then cried poverty when it came to pay for the fire department. And they took the $3 million out of the general fund, which had heretofore paid for the fire department, to pay for a new city hall. That's not priorities. Now, in the future, we're going to have even more money coming into the city. Soon, the Pier Park CRA money will be coming into the city. When 17 out of 18 people come to City Hall and stand right there and say, please don't charge a new assessment, which is a fancy word for a tax, and the City Council doesn't listen to 17 out of 18 people, and the emails were overwhelming as well, that is a violation of the public trust. And one of the main reasons I'm running is to restore that. I think we should be listening to the residents and the taxpayers rather than the consultants.
No comments. Some 20,000 residences and commercial buildings in the city limits and in unincorporated areas get their water, wastewater, and reclaimed irrigation services from Panama City Beach. With an aging water and sewer delivery system under increasing pressure, how are repairs and improvements to be funded to accommodate this expansion as well as the existing? Number 2. All right, you had number 2. All right. Mr. Schultz?
Well, according to Mr. Al, which is in charge of our water department, they have set some money aside for a lot of them projects in the budget. They also plan to put in a new system, And I believe between those two systems, it's gonna work.
Mr. Thompson?
Again, this is about priorities, and water should be a first priority of city government over pet projects and what I call fakaka studies. So we get our water from a pipeline from the county. And do you know that there is a leak in the pipeline? And you have not been informed about that. That has been kept secret from you. I found out about it recently when I had meetings with the department heads. This is something that I find unacceptable. The fact that City Hall keeps secrets from the people. Now, if they didn't want to have a panic, I understand that. But that doesn't mean you keep the information from you. They, instead, what they could have done was explained it to you, but certainly halted any funding for pet projects until such an important issue as the only pipeline bringing water from the county was addressed. So this is something I think we have the money to pay for if we prioritize it. And it's something that you should be informed of with no secrets.
Mr. McConnell?
Yeah, certainly. Right now, the utility department has $32 million that they've stored up just for the sewage center that they're putting up over here on over next to Conservation Park within the next 5 years to handle that growth. I know that there are actually two places for water to come in. One is over here on the West Bay Bridge. One is over at the Hathaway Bridge. And I read about that leak in the paper. So I'm pretty sure most of that probably got out. If you don't get the paper, make sure you go out and read that. There's a lot of good information on that article.
Question number 3.
That would be me.
The media just announced very significant housing developments on the east end of the beach. Since the city already provides services, water and sewer services from the Hathaway Bridge to the Phillips Inlet and up to the West Bay Bridge, what is the argument for or against consideration of annexing these growth areas?
Oh, geez. You know, this is not something that I know a whole lot about. It's certainly something that I would have to learn about. And I gotta say, one thing I would love to see on the city council is a little humility. All of us want to convince you that we're the smartest one here, including me. But there's way too much information to know. The first year in office, I'm going to be just, if God willing and the creek don't rise, I'm elected, I'll be just learning my way around. But these are things that I'd like to talk to with the department heads. As far as the argument of annexing from bridge to bridge, I've heard about that for a long time, and there are certainly arguments to be made for people who are paying into the city and not being represented, especially with the hostility that's recently come from this city council, saying that even though you pay for water, if you don't live within the city limits proper, you can't speak here anymore. There's a lot of problems with that. So to answer your question, I don't have a strong position on whether we should annex or not. That would certainly be something that should be left up to the people in a referendum and not to a city council, in my opinion.
Mr. McConnell?
Yes. Part of the benefits that the city reaps from the people that are in the unincorporated areas is that there's a 25% fee on top of sewage and water that the non-city residents pay. And that helps bring a lot of money back into the utility fund. But there's also the opportunity for the different businesses we have out there to collect more merchant fees. So you're going to have to figure out a way to balance the income that you have coming from the utility users, also with the merchant fees, and see what works out best for the city in that way. And then, of course, you have to sit and make sure that the residents themselves in all of those different areas actually want to come and be a part of our city. Because if they don't, there's no sense in doing that whatsoever.
Been hearing about the annex for a long time. Many years been talking about it. There's a lot of good to it and there's a lot of bad. I think there ought to be some studies sent out to the people of the community and let them know what the differences are, and then let them make a decision on what they want for their city.
Number 4.
We seem to be going in order here.
Well, how about
We didn't shake it
that?
up
Better
too
to be
well.
lucky than good, right? All right, this is on a question from the community on water quality and the safety dealing with low water lake. For several years, residents and environmentalists have complained about the increasing deterioration of Low Water Lake and the desirability of returning it back to a true coastal dune lake. Proponents have claimed that there are state and federal grants to fund cleanup and returning it to its original state. Is this something you as a council member would support? Please explain your reason.
Well, it's definitely something we'd have to look at. Well water is within Ward 3, so that'd be within the ward that we're representing. Part of the issue down there is that they don't have an outflow anymore, so a lot of fungus grows on that lake. And I've talked to a lot of the residents around that area over the last several months now, and a lot of them are really concerned with it. The problem is they don't have an outflow out into the Gulf anymore. So we definitely would have to go get a study, take a look at finding out how we would go about clearing that lake out for them.
Mr. Schultz?
Low Water Lake's a beautiful lake. Fished in it many a time, and I've caught some actually pretty nice bass in there before. They seem to have some problems with the lily pads and things like that the community's concerned about that live there. However, they're going about the wrong way of cleaning it up. There is a product that, if you're into that kind of industry, it's called Navigate, and it does take some of the algae and the lily pads out by the root, not just chopping the tops off. As far as the Dune Lake, I'd have to see what the city has available to do with. I mean, now you're talking about opening it up. If you've been over there, I don't know where you're going to open it up at. There is the outflow, but I don't know about too much of the inflow. It's a nice lake. It would probably be up to the community. People live on it should make that decision. I mean, if you live on that lake, it'd be up to you, not necessarily what somebody who doesn't live in that area. I think again, there we go again. That would be up to the people to decide do they want to change their lake or not.
Mr. Thompson?
So this is a rare coastal dune lake, low water lake, and my understanding is that it is, city property. So it's something that should be taken care of by the city. Now here's the thing. People have been concerned about this lake for a long time. It's sort of being choked out by weeds. It's not as clear as it used to be, and as Jeff alluded to, there's not the Gulf water flow. Okay, so what I would recommend is, even before paying for another study, what I'd like to do is have the concerned residents that I've talked to, I'm sure all of us, what I'd like to see this city council start doing is designate time to residents. Have a 10-minute presentation during a city council meeting from residents who are concerned with the simple things that government should be taking care of. Residents are concerned about simple things, not big giant pet project after pet project. Things like street lamps, things like keeping Low Water Lake healthy. And so what I would like to do, the first thing I'd like to do is take the concerned residents who've been trying to get the attention of this city council for a long time and put them on the agenda, and let's hear from them, and let us sit here and take notes and learn something rather than act like the city council is an expert at everything. So I would like to first listen to the residents and their concerns.
Number 5?
Number 5.
Yeah, that's me.
All right, back to you. On the Bay Parkway extension, the city entered into an interlocal agreement with Bay County to contribute $3.5 million for the extension of Bay Parkway from Pier Park Drive down to Nautilus Road. What does the average citizen gain from this use of these funds for this particular project?
Well, if this is a public trust issue, as far as I'm concerned, because if the promises come true, it would alleviate traffic on Back Beach Road, and we all know we would like to alleviate traffic on Back Beach Road. So the city is working on a loop road, or a Back Beach Road, or the Bay Parkway, and there is a willing participant, as the city manager calls them, and that is the St. Joe Company. And the St. Joe Company has done a lot of good things for us, but also they've done a lot of things that have benefited them probably more than anything else. And I'm not opposed to working with the St. Joe Company. There are concerns. People who live on Argonaut in the Bidwee neighborhood are concerned that the traffic flow coming out, people are going to skip out on Nautilus Road with the speed bumps and come around and fly down Argonaut. So there are some logistical concerns, but my biggest concern of all is let's enter into an agreement that does not include eminent domain, does not threaten the Trieste neighborhood if it extends through, and also we need to trust when we have an agreement with the St. Joe Company that the first priority is truly to benefit the residents and not to develop future developments down the road.
Mr. McConnell?
Yeah, this is, the loop road is gonna be a great thing, I think, for the city and all of its residents. I know I spend an hour to an hour and a half every day in traffic with my children coming back and forth from the Navy base. And that's not the way that I want to spend my time with my family, and I know that nobody here does either. The good thing about that road is it's going to take traffic over there by Nautilus and loop it around to 79. That's going to allow you to avoid the Pier Park area when there are events down here, or when it's just pure summertime and Pier Park is packed. So that's going to be really beneficial to the city. The half-cent sales tax, what a great thing that was. We're getting a gift essentially from Bay County. They're giving us $3.5 million to help build that road. We're also getting a $3 million grant, or they're applying for one to help with that, and that's going to be a really good thing. The half-cent sales tax was a success story from a resident standpoint. Everybody voted for that tax and decided that that was what they wanted to do to help pay for their infrastructure. And I think that's working out for us now. If you look around, you see all the repairs that are going on.
All our community wants something done about the traffic. Sometimes easier said than done, but the Bay Parkway would be an advantage to that, and I said let's get it started. And thankfully we got money from the county coming in to help out with that, and they need to start on it, get it going.
In the interest of not having an even number 4, we're going to consolidate number 6 and number 7. Who's got 7?
I do.
All right, you get to go first this time. All right, a little intro. Panama City Beach has authorized 2 community redevelopment areas, and soon to get another one for the city and one specifically for the Front Beach Road corridor. In general, the CRA's purpose is, and we quote, to stimulate and support investment and redevelopment activities in the CRA in that district, enhance the entire community, and increase property values, unquote. The City Council is the governing board for your CRAs. So the first question, and probably don't need this, we'll start with this one first and then let you go through it together again. Since 2001, the Front Beach Road CRA has been focusing on correcting and improving transportation, parking, beach access, and safety issues, what is called the tax increment financing, or TIF. What are your priorities going forward? Mr. Stoltz?
Well, the CRA program, if you look at it on paper, and I'm not an expert on it, there's a lot of good things that the CRA is going to contribute. And then, of course, if you own property on Front Beach Road, there's some negative things. You know, I think it's something that needs to be studied and find out exactly. You know, a lot of people have no idea what is really going to happen because they haven't seen anything or heard anything from our city council as far as exactly what's going to happen. Now, if you study it or you come in and get some plans on it, but a lot of people don't know, so they're going to move forward with it. And I would like to see the trolley system where people can come down and get out of a condo and get on the trolley and go over somewhere to eat at Schooners or somewhere and come back. It's going to be nice, but it's also going to affect people that own property on Front Beach Road, and that's not good in some cases.
You actually stole my second question relating with that, and it's if traffic control and limiting the number of vehicles on congested Front Beach Road corridor are priorities, why isn't a seasonal tram a viable alternative? So if you'll go ahead and address that.
Well, like I said, there's everybody wants something done with the traffic. We've all been out knocking on doors and meeting people, and everybody has a solution to the traffic. But there's really not. There's only a couple things that can be done. You can't just kick the cars off the road. You got to either widen the roads or add some new roads to it. So if the CRA does include some nice trolley programs and some things, trams and things that people can actually use and keep those cars off the road, how great is that?
Mr. Thompson.
Another thing that the CRA, the Community Redevelopment Agency, is supposed to do, and these came around in the early 2000s, and they're funded by your property values as your property value increases. It's also supposed to be to improve light, and that was one of the most important things it was supposed to do. But over the years, it has become replete with fraud. As a matter of fact, just down the way in Tallahassee, there's been so many fraudulent deals made that the FBI did one of the biggest stings in American history. And the city commission over there is in some hot water. And there are questions about whether these crooked deals have extended throughout the Panhandle, and we're going to find out soon enough. So I want to remember that these are not only to improve property values and not only to beautify a city, but it's also supposed to be to improve blight. And if it's not in a blighted area, they're not supposed to have the authority to do it. So I would love to improve traffic as well. And I like the idea of having a trolley system as long as it doesn't replace roads. So, to add to this, we are not unique. Panama City's not unique. Other cities have dealt with the same sort of growth and space problems as we have. And what I'd love to see us do is take a humble approach and take a look at some other cities with similar challenges and look at what they've done. You know, these side roads, these out roads, and have really helped in some places, like in Pensacola, for example. So, to answer the question, I want to make one of the main reasons I'm running, as I say, is to establish, to restore public trust. There has been a lot of things that have been kept out of public view. I want to make sure that the CRA is used in a legitimate way to improve flight, and I want to clean out any corruption that might be taking place by shining a big old spotlight on it and having you be part of the decision-making process.
Mr. McConnell.
Yeah, so the CRA has been in place since 2001, as you talked about. Now, 17 years is a very long time. You don't see a lot of things happening very quickly over there, and I agree with that 100%. We did have an issue during 2008 when the market crashed, so revenues fell pretty sharply for the CRA, and at that point they had to stop doing what they were doing for a good long time until the funding levels came back up. Because as Mr. Thompson had said, in 2001 you had a property value, let's say with a $100,000 condo. If that condo was bought out and then a huge $5 million condo built on top of it, now the tax revenues that are above and beyond that $100,000 home comes back into the city's coffers. Now I know the county would love to have that money back. They complain all the time about having that money back. And what that's allowing us to do over on Front Beach Road and the feeders, all the feeders are a part of that CRA as well. That allows you to go back and repave it, that allows you to bury all the utilities, that allows you to build the tram and the bike lanes that you see over on South Thomas. You want to see what it's going to look like, go to South Thomas. And that's what it's going to look like when it's completed. I think it's a good thing. I don't know what's happening in Tallahassee. I'm not going to accuse somebody in this town of doing corruption. I have no evidence of that. So I hesitate to say publicly that sort of thing is occurring.
Number 8. Back to you. All right, Mr. Stoltz. Many people who work on the beach cannot afford to live here. Without public transportation on the weekend from the Baytown Trolley, many can't afford to work weekends when beach businesses need the help the most. There are 2 suggestions that have come from this discussion. The first is to use a portion of transportation funding to help pay for weekend Baytown Trolley operations during the peak season, or option 2 is to encourage the construction of more affordable housing through some sort of incentive program to builders. What is your take on this issue?
Well, we need people to work the beach, that's for sure. I mean, everywhere you pass now, everybody's hiring, everybody. However, you go to build more housing, then we got more traffic problems. So we do need it to support the transportation system. We need people that want to come out and work. And if we need to fund that and help with that, then we need to do that. On the board with Beach Care Services, and we give out lots of trolley passes, don't we, Maria? We give out lots of trolley passes to a lot of people that are good working people. They're trying hard. They just don't have a car to get back and forth to work. And that's something that we provide with them and get them what they need so they can get to work. And people want to work, you need to help them.
Thanks, Mr. Thompson.
Well, some of the most expensive, affordable things that we have are things like the Baytown Trolley and affordable housing. I think these are things that sound great, but the government does a very poor job at. All right, so if you want to talk about jobs and people wanting jobs, I'll tell you where we have great potential, I think. And we just opened up Uber. You talk about a great job opportunity. People can work their own schedule, and so on and so forth. Also food trucks. So I think there are a lot of job opportunities that I'd like to free up by having the government not be so heavy-handed. But again, sort of back to your question, I am not the biggest believer in throwing good money after bad. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I am. If the Baytown Trolley and affordable housing is as, it sort of reminds me of the promises that were made with healthcare 8 or 10 years ago, right? It would be less expensive, we'd have more access, and we'd have better quality. That's not what we saw. Anytime the government gets involved in stuff like that. So I'd like to actually see the government get less involved and see people have more of a stake in stuff. When people don't have any stake or ownership in things, they don't treat them very well either. So I think it may not be the most popular idea in the world, but I'm not a big fan of throwing good money after bad, and I think you'd be shocked when you find out how much money the Baytown Trolley is using in ineffective ways.
So the private market's already responding to the affordable housing crisis we've had on this beach. If you go down by Walmart, you'll see 2 different apartment complexes going out. We just talked about the apartment complex being built down at the east end. There's some more coming in over on Middle Beach. So if you look around, you're starting to see a lot of these apartment complexes spring up. And that's there to help the affordable housing crisis that we saw previously. Now, as far as the trolley is concerned, I know that a lot of workers use that to get around a lot of the lower paying people here. And I think that probably the only way we could help that would maybe get the TDC to jump in and try to help pay for that. That workforce is generated for the hotel industry and the condo industry up and down through here, and maybe they should be able to step up and pay their share.
Number 9.
Number 9.
Mandatory trash pickup. Do you support mandatory trash pickup? What role, if any, should the city play in that?
No, absolutely not. And again, this is something that I've been talking about for a long time. Mayor Mike Thomas used to be a city councilman before 2000. And then in 2004, he became a county commissioner. He's been a fan of single hauler trash pickup or franchise trash pickup for a long time. And this city council's actually talked about it recently too. Councilman John Riekert called it a monopoly. Said, well, it's a monopoly, but it's a needed monopoly. I have concerns about mandatory trash pickup. Whether it's some people say it's not a monopoly because there wouldn't be just one trash company. We would designate which trash companies can go where. Well, that's still pretty much telling people what they can do and where they can do it. So there are a few concerns. Number 1, anytime the government tells you that you must purchase a service, you're going to find a few things happen. Price is going to go up, service is going to go down, and you're going to lose choice. I absolutely oppose mandatory trash service for the same reasons I oppose the government telling you you have to buy anything. There are lots of people who do not need that service. That's why they don't buy that service. So I will oppose mandatory government telling you you have to buy anything.
Mr. McConnell.
I'm actually in favor of mandatory trash. I don't know of anybody that doesn't generate trash. I'd be hard pressed to have somebody tell me that they generate no trash whatsoever. I don't believe in monopolies either. I'm a free enterprise guy. I'm a businessman. I don't believe that somebody should come in and carve out the market. We're a small business, social disadvantaged business, and we worked our way to grow large in that market, and I don't think anybody should have a monopoly for that. And one of the ways we could do that is just to show, make it your choice. It doesn't matter what one you use whatever you want, but just have it. And that way we don't have to have all of these overflowing trash bins. We don't have to have the beach accesses piled up. We don't have to have all of the empty lots filled up with different garbages. People go through and just dump their trash in every location they can possibly find. Our beach looks terrible because of this, and I think it's necessary.
Mr. Schultz.
Well, we have tried it in our neighborhood, with our association has done it, and it's turned out to working pretty good. However, it's because we do have somewhere to go. Like Mr. Thompson talked about, if you don't have nowhere else to go, somebody else is in control. But we do have options, but it has worked pretty good in our neighborhood. I would like to see that put out to the citizens of our great city here, and let them find out the details, the ins and outs, and let them make a decision. This is their city. If that's what they want, then they should be able to vote for it.
Thank you. On school safety, number 10. All right. Recent legislation expands the requirement for more safety officers on school grounds. What impact, if any, will that have on the Panama City Beach Police? Should city police officers have the opportunity to serve as SROs at schools in the city limits?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think we already do. I think each school has one now. I'm not sure. I know the high school does. but we don't have but a couple schools in the city limits here, but whatever it takes. I mean, if it's necessary, yes, somewhere along the line, we have to make that work. We have to have our schools safe for our students and our kids in the community. There could be several different things looked at to see how that's gonna work, but we have to make sure our schools are safe for our people and our kids and our students. That's just the way it is. I mean, I'm all for it.
Sir, Mr. Thompson.
This is why it is my first priority to properly staff the police department. You know, last year, the city manager, Mario Gisbert, said on video that we need to hire about twice as many police officers as we do now. That's what he said then. Now he doesn't say that. But the truth is, the police department is understaffed and overworked and underpaid. So we need to have a properly staffed police department. It is a low priority for some reason for the city council. And I see the Panama City police officers at the schools in the mornings, and they do a great job. But I would like to prioritize these types of things. Also, it's the county's role probably more than anything else with the SRO officers. But what we can do once we have a properly staffed police department is prioritize things like this. And it upsets me greatly that we come to, well, I've been to every city council meeting just about for the last 2 years. And do you know how little they talk about this kind of stuff? And do you know how much they talk about spending millions and millions of dollars on new pet projects? Just today, inside this city hall, there's been a big hubbub around here about a big giant contract. And who's gonna get this big giant contract? And all of this secret stuff and politicizing funds, and they prioritize pet projects is what I'm telling you, rather than public safety. My number one thing is to have enough police officers to keep the peace, and that includes our schools. So I'm gonna make this a high priority and put the pet projects on the back burner.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell.
Hi, so Bay County School Board, they run all the SRO program over at all of our schools. We all pay taxes, even though you don't have a property tax, you do have a school tax that you pay. All of this goes into paying for your school and along with that SRO program. So that is something that we would probably have very little impact on. However, I would love to see, as a guy with kids in school right now, I would love to see them expand their funding for the SRO program, restrict access to the schools better. But that's something Bay County School District's gonna have to handle.
This is a good one for number 11. Ah, there we are.
We're all right in line.
All right, and as a matter of fact, it deals with procurement. There are 3 referendums on your ballot, each city voters, and there are 2 questions dealing with that. Number 11. 2 referendum deal with procurement. One deals with non-competitive, multi-year contracts for purchases under $10,000. And the second would allow the city to piggyback with other government agencies from all levels of government on purchases without advertising or competitive bidding for the city. What is your stance on that?
Yeah, those are 2 different issues. The first one, the non-competitive for 10K, I support that wholeheartedly. The government deals in millions of dollars. The federal government that I work with now, they also have credit cards up to $10,000. They go out and they purchase anything under $10,000 that they want to do. I don't see why this city would have to compete things under $10,000. That would cost the taxpayers a large amount of money just to do all of those bids over and over and over again. So I don't really see the purpose in that. However, the piggybacking I do have a problem with. I don't like having the procurements go out for a larger sum of monies without having that visibility for that expenditure.
Mr. Schultz?
I'd be against both of them, because the same people get the same contracts over and over and over. They get the same thing, happens all the time, been going on, still going on. I'm against both of them.
Mr. Thompson?
Yeah, but I encourage us all to vote no on each of these 3 having to do with the bid process. This question got me huffing and puffing almost as Councilman John Ricker, who sits on this side, because it fires me up, and I'll tell you why. It has to do with public trust. I alluded to it a moment ago, but I'm just going to spill the beans. Today in City Hall, you got the politicizing of the bid process. Okay, Jeff mentioned it earlier. a sewer center, wastewater. You've got 2 engineering companies that want this contract. You've got, my sources tell me, you got Mayor Thomas wants to give it to one of the engineer companies, and you've got others who want to give it to the other one. The bid process should be made by staff. It's called RFQ, Request for Qualifications, to decide who's the most qualified. But my understanding is, at the next city council meeting, Councilman John Rickert was supposed to be gone, and I think he will actually be here because they're going to politicize this. They are going to vote rather than have it go through the staff. And one of these companies, I'm going to tell you, look, this is the most important reason I'm running. If I'm ever your city councilman, you're going to know what the government knows. What happened in here today was off the chain unbelievable. You've got, as a matter of fact, if I may, one of Jeff McConnell's financiers is a company that wants one of these bids.
No personal.
No, this is not a personal attack. This is
Say my name,
this
Mr.
is a factual statement.
Thompson.
This is a factual. GAC is one.
Mr. Thompson.
I'm going to finish this. This is important. This is what they don't want you to know, is you have the bid process being politicized. You'll find out all about this because I'll tell you all about it and I'll report it. The bid process should never be politicized. It should always be in full view of the city council in front of you. And when I'm elected, I'm going to do my best to make that happen. And I'm happy to give any information and facts after the meeting.
For the record, no name. Okay?
So what name did I
Number
call?
12. Number 12. Who's got number 12?
Jamie, what did I say? I'm curious.
You said my
Number 12.
Oh, I said your name.
Number 12. Who's got 12?
I do.
Ah,
My
all
favorite
right.
quarterback, Roger Stone.
All right, number 12. All right, so the 2 of those referendum deal with procurements. The third one authorizes the city to exchange or swap beach easements for, quote, equivalently sized and proximately located beach access easement without a referendum, unquote. We understand the council's desire to act expeditiously, but what prompts this measure?
Me?
Yep, you had 12.
What prompts this measure is exactly what I've been telling you and what you've been seeing for the past at least couple of years that I've been watching this. And that is that they do not want to have their names attached to their votes. Part of the reason that when we drive down Front Beach Road, it's an absolute disaster is because one company is getting project after project, and I don't have a problem with the company. It's a good company to be sure, GAC. But they can't handle the work volume. And they probably, as Councilman Rickert suggested, and I agreed with him, they should probably finish one job before they get another job. Right? We should all agree with that. So I oppose anything that takes the decision away from the people, which is to say a referendum, and gives it to City Hall to make behind the scenes. It's outrageous. I want more government transparency. I want more resident and taxpayer input so that you can see what really happens around here and not less. I want the bid process depoliticized and left open to you.
Mr. McConnell.
Yeah, on my vote, I voted no for this. I encourage everybody to vote no on this, simply because they didn't give us enough information on why they wanted to do this. When I go and I look at things, I want to know what the issue is that you're trying to resolve, what it is that you're trying, you feel this law or this thing will help you do, and what the intended consequences are. And if you don't know what those intended consequences are and the unintended consequences, then you didn't explain it well enough, and I would vote no on that.
Mr. Stoltz.
There's not enough information on it, but to take a look at it, somebody's gonna lose. Somebody's gonna lose big, so I'd be definitely against it.
All right. Many residents,
Number
number
13.
13, yes.
That's me.
All right. Many residents complain about the noise stemming from the increasing number of concerts and events at Aaron Besant Park's outdoor amphitheater. Should the city use TDC or CRA funds for sound barriers to buffer the impact of events on area residents?
I have an emphatic answer to this, and the answer is maybe. I haven't thought about it. But it sounds to me like the proper role of government. It's a lot like when you live in a big city, you know, and you've got the interstates and the freeways and the cars flying by, and you've got those big sound walls between the residents and the cars. I do believe that quality of life is important. And so where does one person's rights begin and another person's rights end? Well, I'll tell you, you're free to wave your arms around as much as you like, and I can do mine as much as I'd like until I get Skip in the nose, and then I've overreached, and the same is true with sound. So I think it's within the realm of legitimate government to protect people's quality of life when it comes to sound pollution or when it comes to loud music. So I'm open to that. It's something I need to learn a whole lot more about. I haven't thought about it really, but this is an area where people say, Bernie, can you work with the city council? And my answer is, I can always compromise on policy. You know me, I'll never compromise on principle. But this is something that I think the people should have a lot of input on, and it's within the proper rule of government, so I'm wide open to it.
And before Aaron Besant Park was built, all of these functions were held at Frank Brown Park, and I live over there on that side of Palmetto Trace, and it was pretty loud. And the reason they built Aaron Besant was to move it away from the residential areas. There's a good buffer zone over there between Pier Park West and any of the residential areas. There's a few places that are probably impacted from that. But every time they hold an event over there, I can't hear it anymore. And they do a good job of metering that sound and making sure that they keep it low enough for you not to hear it. Now the ones over at Frank Brown Park, they're still pretty loud, the ones they do hold there. But they've done a pretty good job of sheltering the backside so it doesn't come over there. And sometimes I've been disappointed. There've been some people that I wanted to hear and I wasn't able to hear, even though I'm 100 yards away from that point. So the CRA funds, you would not be able to use the CRA funds to do that. It would be illegal. The TDC could certainly pitch in some of that money if they wanted to, and I'd be open to that if that was going to be something that helped out the residents.
Sir? Mr. Pope?
Well, I can only speak for our subdivision that we live in. We do live close to both of them. And years ago, Frank Brown Park was pretty loud. However, though, Mr. McConnell stated that they buffered it some by moving the stage facing another way about 10 feet, and that seemed to work quite a bit. Aaron Besant Park, you hear it a little bit, but it doesn't go all night. It's part of the community, and it's not something that is really that big of a burden. I would not be for buffering it, any zones or any walls or anything like that. I'm not going to spend money on police force and fire department.
Kara,
Yeah,
18
numbers.
questions?
The numbers.
I got you.
Okay. Number 14,
That's me.
down to the last three. Drinking on the sandy beaches. Now that the prohibition on drinking on the sandy beaches for the month of March has passed, some people support imposing a year-round ban on drinking to make Panama City Beach even more family-friendly. What is your stance on prohibiting alcohol on the beach designated year-round? As is the case with the Dog Beach, should certain public beaches be designated alcohol-free? Who's got number 14?
That's me.
All right.
That's a very difficult question. There are tons of beaches and tons of parks that ban alcohol already. They are all over this place. I'm not sure that I would support that for a year-round event. I think the 1 month ban is doing its job just fine for what it needs to. But yeah, I all year round I could not support that.
Well, we chose the 30 days for March, and it's working so far. What we're doing is working. You see the crowds in. Some of the smaller stores are setting records for sales. It's working, and I think we need to move forward with that. I wouldn't be for all year. And it's always something that you can keep monitored and see how it works and see how it goes. And if it's something down the road to make a change, you take it to the voters.
Yeah, of course not. But what I want to do is make sure that people are not disturbing the peace year-round, not just in March. So 365, 24/7, I am the candidate who wants to punish drunken behavior and criminal behavior all year round. And I don't want people who commit real crimes and disturb the peace to get away with writing a small check to the state attorney's office and skating out of town. So when this issue really comes down to not only public safety, but disturbing the peace. So let's make sure by having enough officers that people are not disturbing the peace all year round. Let's not just focus on March and then let the other 11 months of the year be out of hand. So no, I want to enforce the laws all year round.
Thank you. That's the final. Good one. Number 15, all right. It's a big one.
It's me again.
Yes. What is your stance on allowing medical marijuana dispensaries in city limits?
That's not my choice. The Florida voters have spoken on that. They voted for the amendment. It's just trying to figure out a way to get it done. That's outside of the city's purview.
Well, you have to understand the difference between the dispensary and the recreational, like has been done in some other states. Dispensary is someone that has a prescription that doctor or somebody's prescribed to have them do that. I'd be no problem with having one of those in the city limits. I know right now people are driving all the way to Tallahassee, Pensacola to get their prescription filled. I am not for recreational use, but a dispensary where people that have a prescription and need it for a medical use to be able to go somewhere and get it.
Mr. Thompson?
I don't believe politicians and bureaucrats should ever come between a patient and a doctor. And 71% of Floridians voted to legalize medical marijuana, and then the state legislature got in there and messed it up. They didn't make it easy. And guess who else didn't make it easy? The 412 cities that compose Florida, and the 67 counties that compose Florida. So the state government, the state legislature, had a special session last year. And they came back in, and you know what they said? They said local governments can ban dispensaries. So actually, we do have a say in it. I will do all I can to make sure patients can get any medication that they and their doctors agree upon. Local governments do have a role in it. They can ban it, and I think it is terribly cruel for politicians and bureaucrats to get between patients and doctors. You know, Mayor Mike Thomas and I, we agreed. Did you get that? No. Mayor Mike Thomas and I, we agreed. Jamie, you were ready to put the hammer on me, weren't you? When he said he thought when we voted for this that it would be dispensed by pharmacies. I thought so too. Did you think when we voted for that it would be dispensed by pharmacies? But no. Instead, government is picking and choosing certain people who are going to make a killing on this, and this is why it's become difficult for patients to get it. So, to answer your question, I'll do all I can to make it safe and available to those of us who need it.
And our last question from the league, number 16. There he is. All right. Short-term rental services like Airbnb offer owners a way to generate rental income. 2 questions about this. Absent a homeowners association prohibition from short-term rentals, how do you weigh the rights of property owners against the rights of their neighbors when transient and often disruptive tenants become the norm? And secondly, should the city impose regulations on short-term rentals and collect bed tax from them?
You're already getting it.
Wow, that's a big one. I do believe that if it's your property, you ought to be able to come up with a program that you want for your property. However, we all know that we have seen properties that are short-term rentals that are in a certain neighborhood or beside somebody else's house that the people have gotten unruly, or you got 25 cars in the parking lot, in the street, and things like that. And that is where somebody needs to be accountable for that. And so I don't have all the answers on that, but if it goes back to anybody, whether it be spring break or vacation rental, somebody's out of control, then that person or people should be taken care of by law enforcement, come over and do something about it. However, I do know in some situations that the property value is possibly that could go down, that if you have a short-term rental beside your property, but that's a tough one because you own the property, and it's hard to be able to tell somebody what they can and can't do with something that they've paid for.
Bed tax collection on short term?
Yeah, eventually it'll happen, and it should. I mean, if you're in a system and you're doing some rentals, you should be giving back to the city.
Mr. Thompson?
I don't believe, forgive me, I don't believe that we ever have to weigh rights against each other. Because my understanding of rights is that they don't collide. right? So if somebody is renting in your neighborhood and they're disturbing the peace, they need to be addressed by the police. And so I just don't believe that we have to weigh rights against each other because rights typically, rights, they don't collide. That's a philosophical belief of mine. I would like to see Panama City Beach be a more welcoming and friendly city. You know who does a good job at this? Pensacola does a really good job at this. They're one of the cities that encourages owners of homes, second homes, third homes to do short-term rentals. And they offer more choice for tourists, and guess what they get? They get vibrant and good tourism, the kind of tourism that we say we want here. When you can come in and rent a home, like Janice Hatcher's, for example, it is so much more economical, and it is the choice is fantastic. Imagine if you had a daughter who was getting married, and you were going to bring 25 members of your family to Panama City Beach. You could either all get a hotel room, or which comes with its own set of problems, or you can get one big cozy home right on the water and spend your time with each other. It's a beautiful and wonderful choice for people to have. What we've seen in the past couple of years is the hotel industry use local politicians to attack short-term rental owners. It was such an issue that Senator Greg Steube didn't get it done this year. But you know, the Panhandle Association of Realtors, who just endorsed Jeff McConnell, they fought against this. I'm not allowed to say that? I'm sorry, that's a good thing. Jeff did a good thing on that. What I'm saying to you is, Senator Steube did the best he could to protect property rights, and I would like to do the same thing. Unfortunately, they ran out of time, and so did I.
All right. That concludes the league's questions. Now we're turning to some of your questions. You're a voter. You're a voter. All right, you're a voter. Oh, I'm so sorry. My apologies. Got ahead. Last
Right,
but
so
not least.
I'll answer this pretty simply. Short-term rentals in residential areas that do not have an HOA is problematic. You move into an area, you buy a home, you expect to live there amongst your neighbors. You don't expect to have people going in and out of there continually. You don't expect your property values to be impacted from that. I'm not going to lie to you, I do use Airbnb and VRBO when I go out of town. It's a great system. But I do believe the bed tax should be collected on that. I'm pretty sure that's state law that they have to provide bed tax on any condos or short-term rentals. So, yeah, I do think they do.
Cool. Well done so far. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. All right.
Can I ask a question for clarification about all this? Are you not allowed to state something that's public record if someone's name's
Well,
involved?
we want to limit names, name calling, name referencing.
I balanced out one good, one not so good, Jeff.
I mean, it shouldn't matter if it's good or bad, if it's public record.
League rules.
Yeah.
League rules.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I mean, we just try
All
to
the foreign rules
keep.
are that if you state a name, you're allowed to have a rebuttal.
Yeah, we try not to. We don't want to get in that. We don't have time for straight. We don't want to get in that. Okay, number 1. And what we'll do is we'll go number 1, McConnell, number 2, Mr. Stoltz, number 3, Mr. Thompson. So everybody gets to answer the same question, but we kick off with Mr. Thompson. How do you plan on keeping the beach clean? What about recycling?
Well, recycling's a big thing in our family. We do that quite a bit. Right now, the city has 3 bins back behind here that will take paper, they'll take everything but bottles, and those bottles will go to Target. Target is the only place on the beach that I know of that'll take your bottles and recycle them. And everything else is collected here in the city.
Mr. Stoltz?
I think it's a great idea. However, I do believe that what we're doing now, we're recycling, but we're not really recycling. It's taken to the landfill. What difference does that make? So it needs to be used as, if we're going to recycle, let's set up some recycle areas and drop off points, and let's make it work.
My understanding is that we burn the trash for energy. So, you know, that's on one hand. But on the other hand, this is one of those issues that I think should be led by the residents. If residents want recycling, I think the council should hear it and should consider options to move ahead. This is another example where I would love to see a group of citizens who love the idea of recycling come up in front of the city council, get a good 10 minutes and make the case for it, and then have the city council see if it's feasible to do or not. So, you know, it's one of those issues that I'm not passionate about one way or another, but I respect the fact that many of you are, and you ought to be heard.
Mr. Stoltz, you get to lead off on this one. This person asks or says, locals should not have to pay to walk out on the city or county pier. Would you vote to help locals enjoy fishing and walking on the piers without a hit in their income each week? We are not tourists. Thank you. All over.
Yes, I'd be for that. I'd be for helping the locals get out on the pier and enjoy themselves. They live here. Especially, you know, some of us, I have family come in and there'll be 7 or 8 of us, and you know, you pay the fee because that's what it's supposed to do. But locals ought to have a little bit of a discount, sure.
I think locals have been punished enough by the city council for the crimes of spring breakers. So I'm open to this idea as well. Again, I confess, it's not something I've thought much about, but if that's what residents want, residents should be heard.
So this is probably a difficult question to answer, really, because I'm not sure what the budget is over there for the park and rec. You'd have to balance out with how much traffic you get over there, along with how much you would actually have to make up in windfall. You'd certainly be able to do a discount, I would think, and raise the fees for tourists. But I'm not sure you could go completely free without shutting down that pier completely. But you definitely have to look at the money behind it and the finances and see what works best, and I'd love to give that back to the locals.
Mr. Thompson, you get to lead off first on this one. Can the new road, the Bay Park Bay or the Back or whatever it is we're calling it today, be a limited access, or will it too turn into Back Beach Road in 10 years?
This comes down to public trust, doesn't it? What do you think is going to happen with this loop road that's being sold to us to mitigate traffic? We all want better traffic flow. But who believes that this will not be developed in the future? Now, the question is, should it be developed in the future? And the answer is, if you support property rights as I do, probably. So it's a double-edged sword. But what I want to be careful about is I want to recognize that government isn't something that offers solutions. Government offers trade-offs, not solutions. So there will be benefits to it, and there will also, I believe, if I lift my gaze, G-A-Z-E, if I look ahead, what I'm saying is I think that there will be development on that, and I'm not sure that's a bad thing, but I think it's probably coming.
Mr. McConnell?
Yeah, traffic lights do a very good job of what they say they are. They create traffic, and that's their job, is to bunch everybody up and create a problem. The back loop road right now, the city drawings designs that I've seen, have that being a limited access road where you have actually access roads on the side going down through. They're saying there's no traffic lights down through the whole of it. That way development can happen on the sides of it if it does occur without impacting the flow of traffic. So they're going to ban traffic lights right now. So that will be an expressway all the way from right here all the way down to Nautilus, which will be perfect. So yeah, that's what's supposed to happen with Loop.
Mr. Schultz?
Can't speak for what's going to happen 10 years down the road, but you know, at one time, Back Beach Road was pretty smooth too. So, with what we have, I mean, we do have a lot of growth, and we have a lot of apartment complexes coming into play. There's going to be a lot of traffic on that road too.
And our last question, well, we'll just rotate back up to Mr. McConnell. How do you feel, it's kind of like explaining it to someone, how do you feel about non-resident citizens speaking at city council meetings? Can any citizen speak out during the public comment time?
That is a difficult question to answer. I haven't sat up here. I don't know all of the repercussions from that. I'm a resident of the city. I pay taxes in this city. I've lived in this city for a very long time. I'd like to see the city's residents get up here and voice whatever issues they have. That's for sure. Non-residents, I'm not so sure. I really can't answer that question.
That is a tough question because we're all from the city and we pay taxes. We do stuff here in the city. You know, Bernie maybe can answer this for us. But do we actually have a lot of people that come to the city council meetings that are from the county? I don't know, and if that's the case, and you don't have an impact to what goes on in the city. However, you should probably give everybody a right to speak. I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know that I could answer that either way at this point.
This is the reason I'm here right now, is because Mayor Thomas said you can't speak here. Now this is an important one. Not only is it a First Amendment issue, and we have a right to petition the government for a redress of grievances, but the city cites a 2004 county judgment down in Cocoa, Florida, where they did this. They got tired of hearing public comments they didn't like, so they said only residents can speak here. But see, what they were really saying is that only stakeholders can speak here, because property, they pay taxes. And so people who weren't residents were not truly stakeholders. Well, we're different in Panama City Beach, aren't we? So what they did here was they said, we're going to discriminate against taxpayers. We're going to discriminate against the people who pay our salaries. Because if you shop in Panama City Beach, you're a stakeholder. Our city is very different than Cocoa, Florida. We should welcome dissenting opinions and not shirk dissenting opinions. It's very, very important to understand not only if this was challenged in court, it would probably be thrown out. But one of the first things I want to do is say we should not discriminate against taxpayers. And if you want to come up here and for 3 minutes tell me what I'm doing wrong, we should listen to your 3 minutes, or else maybe you'll do what I did and say, okay, well, if I can't talk here, maybe I'll come sit right next to you. So I'm for more public comments. I want you to have the right to petition your government for a redress of grievances, and I don't want to discriminate against any taxpayers.
All right, yeah, y'all. We conclude this evening by allowing our candidates to each have 2 minutes as a closing statement, and paper, scissors, Mr. Stoltz, you've been the man in the middle. We'll let you go first.
Sure. I've been living here a long time, been in the community a long time, and serving the community for about 16 years, and got a beautiful wife in 32 years. My son's in the military, so I understand that aspect of the veterans and military, and my daughter has a wonderful family, and we love the beach, we love the city. We moved here from Georgia, and we just love where we're at, and I want to be able to serve the community like I have for the last 16 years at a little different level, a little different aspect, and make some decent decisions. And I have not sold out to the good old boy system and the corporate America. So I'm my own man. I have my own opinions, and I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And I'd like to get an opportunity to serve our city at a different point. So.
Thompson.
Yeah, this really comes down to priorities and public trust and the rule of law. And as I mentioned, there are so many secrets up here that you're not in on. And when you ask to find out, they either say you can't talk here, or they say that'll be thousands of dollars for you to see your own public records. That's unacceptable. So how many times have you watched the city council or any local government, or government for that matter, and thought, is there something going on here and we're not in on it? Pretty soon, if I'm elected, you're going to be in on it. And that includes the bid processes. As I alluded to earlier, the things that were going on here today about a bid process and and politicizing how certain companies get bids is unacceptable, and it shouldn't be a secret. The only time, if we were on a board together, that we're allowed to talk about these things is in front of you. So rather than being a united front, as we see with the county commission and the city council, they are a united front against you. I want to be a united front with you. So if we disagreed and we were on the board, the only time we get a chance to disagree is when we're sitting up here and you get to see it. And so there will be some disagreement if I'm elected. But here's what I'm most concerned about. Priorities. Let's fully staff the police department so we can keep the peace. Number 2, let's audit City Hall so you know what the government knows. And 3, let's forget about things like this, a brand new City Hall, and take care of roads and storm drains and street lights and sidewalks instead of big pet project after pet project that benefits them and their supporters. So finally, if I'm elected in 2 short weeks, you will know what the government knows.
And last but not least, Mr. McConnell.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting us all to come. I'm grateful for having the opportunity. I want to thank all of you for coming out and listening to us. I know some of this can be challenging, some of it's difficult to hear or to say, and especially when I talk, I know I'm not articulate enough. I don't have my own show that I talk all day, so it's hard for us. All right, so other than that, I've lived on this beach for 23 years. Came here with the Navy. I worked over at the Navy base for 10 years, managing multi-million-dollar contracts over there and helping to develop large-scale systems. Also running a business here on the beach. We've been able to grow from 6 people up to 250 people. So I know what it's like to have proven leadership, to lead those people forward and grow a large organization, to plan forward for long-scale scheduling, and for managing taxpayer funds in the millions of dollars every single day for 30 years now. So I live here, I see all the issues and all the challenges that we have, and I've lived here for a very long time doing that. I pay my taxes here, and I see all the good that we have too. This beautiful beach out here, it's beautiful people. I'll tell you, this is the last forum we have, and I'll tell you that even though there have been some challenges and there have been some negativity, I have found that more people have been good that I've met than I have bad. And that's restored my faith in humanity, and for this whole process, I'm thankful for that. Thank you.
And we're thankful to all of you for your willingness to put yourself up for public office. We really
Well, on behalf of the League, I'd just like to say thank you to all, and thank you to the candidates and the media for being our supporters and our partners in this. And thank you to our officers who are here to help us. I'd just like you to stand up so I can acknowledge you again. And we have, no, stand up. You're all, thank you guys.